you very much, but why do you speak so brutally?
Brutal slang of Rodney Williams.
I've heard that it's unnecessarily brutal.
Repression of South African black citizens.
He doesn't believe in the brutality of an eye for an eye.
Walter Collins was brutally murdered.
But even then, we weren't much good at it. It's hard. Ours are brutal.
Now, that avoiding apple skins and pizza has no effect on this brutal disease.
She was stabbed to death, most brutally. Cut to pieces, in fact.
The brutal double homicide, where you found the defendant legally sane.
Don't be so brutal, Pilar. I love you very much, but why do you speak so brutally?
Why do you think, girl? Huh?
Slap you again if you got hysterical again. Wouldn't be anything brutal. Why, even back in the old days, we never tried to hurt people in the face.
James Cole is now also wanted in connection with the brutal slaying of Rodney Wiggins, an ex-convict from Ardmore. His body was discovered.
Not for the people who read newspapers.
But I've heard that it's unnecessarily brutal. Like a cockfight, except it's with people.
I feel that that would be a major mistake. The brutal repression of South African black citizens makes this no longer a foreign policy issue.
I'm sure that deep in his heart, he doesn't believe in the brutality of an eye for an eye. I've never seen your husband, but I've
This was going on. Walter Collins was brutally murdered, along with as many as 19 others.
It was during our wrestling days. And even then, we weren't much good at it. It's hard. Ours are brutal. Oh, you gotta be a kid to start a ranch.
And that will tell you what is obvious right now, that avoiding apple skins and pizza has no effect on this brutal disease. Now, please, doctor, please, is there...
A prostitute, also one of our agents. She was stabbed to death, most brutally. Cut to pieces, in fact.
A charming story.
But what testifying the trial of one Dan Baker. It's a rather brutal double homicide where you found the defendant legally sane.
Yes?
But the sitting psychiatrist.
Stay tuned for a special edition of Top Story. Detective Eddie Fleming's brutal murder has been videotaped, and we will broadcast.
I vow to attack any ship flying an American flag for the retaliation of the brutal killing of our friends. Within hours, he delivered on his words. By attacking the...
There was another guy. It was a white guy. He was right by the bar.
The coroner says her vagina was brutalized.
Are you my lawyer, man?
A man's seed can be his most brutal weapon. For generations, your people will stare.
Into organized crime in Dublin, and has interviewed...
Why do they always use that brutal picture?
It was a very serious incident. Veronica...
And Perry Smith, who brutally murdered a Kansas family 3 years ago.
Who sent that?
Hey, and when Noriega's drug running and brutality got too much even for the CIA, it was George, now President Bush, who...
It just means these tasks are designed to test you. In the most brutal way, they're almost cruel. And,
50 miles over the border. Apparently the Soviet commander there is exceptionally brutal, as those photos indicate. And he's managed...
Look, I gotta go. The cops are here. I love you too. It's about fucking time I...
Why? Because I know he brutally raped her and he beat her. Talk to me! I'm staying in here!
Grounded. Everybody's grounded. It's done.
What we do here is brutal, and it does leave people devastated, but there is a dignity to the way I do it.
Escobar, frente a esta nueva amenaza, responde con una ola brutal de terror. Pablo Escobar y sus aliados pronto pagarán por sus...
Lawful gathering of sharecroppers who were brutally attacked by a gang of violent vigilantes. Now witnesses see that you were there.
Again, Sarah Connor, 35, mother of two, brutally shot to death in her home this afternoon.
You're dead, honey.
In other late-breaking news, Teamster represents...
My lawyers. Oh. You want to check him for police brutality, lady? You got as long as it takes to print him. Get in here.
For 3 years and 9 months for America and Britain, which was the brutal, costly eastern half of the most horrible worldwide war in human history, is now...
Till we find him, you want to get us fired. When we find him, you accuse us of brutality. Before we can go into court, you give him...
Too clearly that he's not telling the truth. The truth is that these brutalities were brought about by the few extremists, the criminals.
In American society can't be counted on to insulate its citizens from brutality and inhumane treatment in response to a
England to the custody of the abbot of his monastery. I want him treated without brutality, but carefully watched.
Yes, my lord.
If I were in uniform, I'd split your skull with the butt of this revolver faster than you could say police brutality. Well, officer, whatever it is I've done, I'm sure I can explain.
Were you sitting in there? Did you hear the people around you?
Well, what about
Sean? Grim. That was brutal. It was unrelenting. I mean, the air was sucked out of the room halfway through the damn thing.
Last night, 2 burglars broke into his home and attempted to rob and brutally attack him. This visually impaired man was able to defend himself.
Look, I'm not free. I'm committed. You know what my theory is? And when I drink, I get brutally frank. I think that you're still hurting from...
We must retaliate for this brutal act.
Many of us have only a short time left in this city. We must hold...
Treated as prisoners. No more brutality.
There's hundreds of prisoners out there and only a few men to guard them.
They have actually torn up and trampled on every single treaty and seem to be a worse threat than ever to the whole of Europe, not to mention their brutal dictatorship at home.
My dear boy, when I was in Berlin...
I left him. I left him in a brutal way. For the handsome and dashing.
What's happened in here for the last 4 years? The brutality, humiliation, our basic human rights taken away from us. All of this has to come to an end through talking.
Do your job, man. Ow!
That's police brutality.
Let the dude go, man. His heart is broken, man. Hold on.
Ain't nobody hurt me.
People
Take an innocent woman and assault her in a brutal, sadistic, ungodlike manner is blasphemy.
Lock him up.
Corre a todos nosotros nomás por irte, ¿eh?
Maestro, solo estoy diciendo que las condiciones son bestiales. Nadie puede...
Bonehead running around the neighborhood.
Yeah, right.
Police brutality.
You know how to handle that situation.
100 times. What happened to her could have happened to me. I mean, the ocean was brutal that day. You can ask anybody.
You weren't supposed to be driving. She was supposed to be driving.
Listen to me.
Your son brutally whipped a defenseless young girl because he thought that she was ugly. He thought by...
They didn't like it. It says, Underworld joins strikers in brutal battle, but the Post, they liked it.
Sorry I'm late. Hey, Sheila. Traffic was brutal. Had to go back by the office and pick up your lucky picture.
That first night can be brutal. I survived.